"The heat is not the only thing that punishes on this plantation," he said, taking a short step toward the veranda. "I see how the lady squeezes herself into those dresses, into those laces that seem to want to suffocate what lies beneath. It is too much pressure for one body alone." Isadora felt her face burn. The audacity was such that it took her a few seconds to process the insolence. He was commenting on her garments, on her physical intimacy. "How dare you?" she began, but her voice failed. Samuel took another step, staying at the boundary between the garden and the veranda's shade. He was tall, and his physical presence seemed to diminish Isadora's stature, even though she was at a higher level. "The lady lives in a very narrow world. Donna is... Everything here is small, tight, made to not let anyone breathe." He continued, his voice now reduced to a whisper that seemed to touch her skin. "Sometimes, what is too compressed needs space. I look at the lady and see that you are at the limit." He paused, and the silence that followed was louder than any scream. Samuel slightly inclined his body, his eyes shining with an intelligent and dangerous malice. "If you permit me the care, I could teach the lady to breathe better. Perhaps I should widen you a little, open a path where today there is only tightness." The shock hit Isadora like a physical blow. The phrase, loaded with brutal double meaning and a promise of profanation, left her breathless. He was not just talking about clothes or physical space. He was claiming an intimacy she had never permitted even to her own husband. Before she could scream or call the overseer, Samuel picked up the vases again, made a minimal bow loaded with sarcasm, and disappeared into the penumbra of the corridor, leaving only the smell of earth and the echo of his audacious voice. The night at the Arroeras plantation brought no rest, only a dense darkness that seemed to amplify every sound from the main house. In the master bedroom, Isadora lay on the linen sheets, but the comfort of the bed seemed like torture. Her husband snored beside her, a heavy and indifferent sound, while she stared at the canopy, feeling her chest rise and fall in short, nervous breaths. Samuel's words, "Widen you a little," were not just a memory. They were a living whisper that seemed to traverse the corners of the room. She tried to convince herself that it had been an affront worthy of the whip, an insolence that should have been reported immediately. But deep in her consciousness, what frightened her was not his audacity, but the way her own body had reacted to hearing that deep voice. She got up, her bare feet touching the cold wood of the floor. She needed water. She lit a small candle and went out into the extensive corridor, where the portraits of ancestors seemed to judge her with severe looks. The candle flame oscillated, projecting long shadows on the whitewashed walls. Upon approaching the staircase that led to the service area, she stopped. A figure moved in the penumbra. "Ist too tight, Senora?" The voice came from the back of the corridor, as if it had been invoked by her own thoughts. Isadora almost dropped the candle. Samuel was there, leaning against one of the wooden columns with half his face hidden in shadows. It was not his place. The domestic slaves should be in their quarters at that hour. "What are you doing here inside?" she whispered, her voice trembling, trying to recover the dignity that her fine lace nightgown did not seem to protect. "I should call my husband right now." "You have crossed all limits." Samuel did not move. He merely uncrossed his arms and took a slow step into the light. His gaze had not the fear of a man facing death, but the patience of one who knows the ground he treads. "The lady will not call anyone," he said with a confidence that disarmed her, "because what I said this afternoon has not left your head. The fear you feel is the same that prevents you from screaming. It is the fear of discovering that the tightness you feel in your chest can only be cured by one who knows where it hurts." He approached closer, enough for Isadora to feel the heat emanating from him, contrasting with the cold of the corridor. "The lady lives under rules that crush you. Donna Isadora, I am a man trapped by chains, but the lady is trapped by silences. What I offer is to widen this world, even if only for one night." Isadora felt a chill run down her spine. It was a forbidden curiosity, a desire to understand what it meant to be widened by this man who treated her with a dangerous equality. She should order him to leave, but her hand, which held the candle, trembled and remained immobile. The authority of the mistress was melting like hot wax, leaving only the vulnerable woman secretly fascinated by the abyss that opened before her. The clinking of silver against Macau porcelain was the only sound filling the dining room of the Aroeras plantation. Under the flickering light of the silver candelabra, Colonel Custodio chewed with methodical slowness, almost cruel. He was a man made of right angles and absolute certainties, whose gaze rarely landed on Isidora with anything other than an assessment of property. Isidora, seated at the other end of the immense jacaranda table, felt that the space between them was not just physical, but an abyss of silence and indifference. She wore a high-collared dress, closed up to the chin, with small pearl buttons. Each of those buttons seemed like a nail in her emotional coffin. She felt more than ever tight, suffocated by expectations, by rigid morality and lovelessness. "The overseer mentioned that some of the slaves are restless," said the colonel, without taking his eyes off his plate, "including that one you designated for the vases, Samuel. He has a look I don't like. He's too bold for someone born under the whip." Isidora's heart gave a violent leap against her ribs. She kept her gaze fixed on the wine-glass, fearing that any movement would reveal the trembling in her hands. "He is merely efficient at work." "Custodio," she replied, her voice coming out thinner than intended, "I have not noticed insolence." The colonel raised his eyes, cold as the steel of a dagger. "Well, I have noticed, and if he forgets his place, I myself will make it a point to remind him. Women like you, Isidora, are too soft. You think a slave is a decoration piece, but they are like beasts. If you give them 1 centimeter of freedom, they try to take the arm. If you give them 1 centimeter, they try to widen the path." Isidora thought, Samuel's phrase distorting itself and gaining force in her husband's authoritative voice. Custodio returned to eating, ignoring his wife's presence as if she were part of the furniture. For him, Isidora was an extension of the plantation, useful, necessary for the lineage, but devoid of her own will. Her loneliness at that table was so vast that the air seemed rare in effect. It was at that moment that she realized the real weight of Samuel's provocation. While her husband wanted her compressed, silent, and invisible, inside those clothes and rules, the enslaved man had seen. He saw the woman pulsing beneath the lace, and with a dangerous phrase, he offered what Custodio would never give: the recognition of her existence, even if through fear and forbidden desire. A movement in the shadow of the corridor caught her attention. For a second, she swore she saw the gleam of a pair of eyes observing the dinner scene. It was not fear that made her tremble now, but the perception that the beast her husband so feared was already inside the walls of the house, waiting for the right moment to break the seams of that perfect and suffocating life. The orchard of the Aroeras plantation was set apart from the headquarters, where the smell of orange blossoms mixed with the acrid odor of fruit rotting on the ground. It was a place of dense shadows, even during the day, and that afternoon, the air seemed charged with an electricity that preceded the storm. Isidora walked among the trees, trying to calm her nerves after the icy dinner of the previous night. Her fingers nervously played with the lace of her bodice, feeling more and more the tightness of the boning against her chest. "The lady walks as if fleeing from herself." Samuel's voice emerged from behind a laden mango tree. She gave a start, but did not scream. Deep down, she knew he would be there. Samuel had a hole resting on his shoulder, but he dropped it as soon as she approached. He did not make the expected reverence, he just stared at her, and the distance between the two seemed to diminish of its own will. "You should not be here, Samuel. My husband is watching your steps," she said, trying to imprint an authority that unraveled with each second. "The colonel watches what he possesses, but he does not possess your will, Donna Isidora." Samuel took a step forward, entering her personal space circle. The heat emanating from him was almost palpable. "He wants you imprisoned, tight in this world of appearances. But I see how the lady looks at the horizon." Isidora felt her back touch the rough trunk of a tree. She was cornered, but made no move to leave. Sweat sprouted on her bosom, and the perfume of the orange trees became intoxicating, almost narcotic. "What do you want from me?" she whispered, her voice choked by tension. Samuel extended his hand. He did not touch her, but his fingers stopped millimeters from her face, feeling the heat of her skin. "I already said, I want to remove this tightness that consumes you. The lady is like a fruit that is about to burst the shell from being so ripe, but no one has the courage to harvest it. I am not afraid of the colonel, nor of your laws." He leaned in, and this time there was no hidden double meaning. His breath brushed Isadora's ear,